One of the most exciting things that we've had the privilege of experiencing as a team over the last few months is launching Indigenous. Sometimes people are asking questions and they come and say, "Hey, Bill, I see you're a Christian and it seems like your life's different and I wonder about this." But sometimes, especially for us, we believe in taking the initiative, tapping people on the shoulder, breaking in to whatever they're doing and being a little disruptive. This is missions. It's what you were trained in. It's what I was trained in. We went through cross-cultural training several decades ago. This is what they taught us to do. Who is the tribe you're trying to reach? That's what this persona exercise was all about. And you may be thinking, well, what's the action point for me? Well, the action point is this is how we think missions today. Who are you trying to reach? Who is your audience? You think, well, we don't need to worry about that because we're in leadership development HR. Really? You got a card on the table today, LDHR team. Who's your audience? Who's coming to your sites? Who's coming to that site? Maybe leaders from our 200 countries, but maybe potentially 100,000 Christian leaders from around the world. We could tap them on the shoulder just like we tapped Balatz on the shoulder. You want some of the best Christian training in the world? Digital strategy is for you too. This is missions. Who's your audience? And then what's the content? This is what Karen Schenk was talking about. This is what, as we do this exercise with these 9 people, and you look on that right-hand column, it says this is what they're interested in. People will read what they're interested in. Images, videos, text, audio. Those are the 4 types of content we can create. You have already created content, and a lot of our approach in digital has, and so far what we've been doing over the last 15 years is we want to just throw everything up and say, it's everything there. But people don't want everything. You don't want everything. You want a curated view of the best that's available for the topic or the issue that you're facing at the time. That's why you look at the first 10 lines on your Google search page. So we have some of the greatest content in the world, but we're going to have to reposition it differently. So it's conceivable we could take something like the 10 basic steps and we could rewrite it 9 different ways for these 9 different tribes. That's the task before us. That's the task before you and your teams as you go back to lead. Tribe, content, platform. When Paul went to Athens, where did he go? He went to where people were meeting. When you look at the bottom and right of those personas, it tells these are the platforms that this person uses. It was fascinating when we did Indigenous Hong Kong because we went there, and in our prior Indigenous conferences, we had used a hashtag on Twitter for the feed for the conference. And you know, we'll have that stuff with our staff conferences sometimes, and there's a little bit of activity. But you go to an Indigenous conference, there's a lot of flood of activity on that hashtag. But when we got to Hong Kong, no one used Twitter. They used WeChat. So I had to learn a new app at the conference just to be able to participate in my team's conference. Because that's the platform they wanted to communicate in, not the platform that I was most comfortable in. That's missions. That's incarnational missions. That's Jesus leaving heaven and coming to earth. That's John chapter 1. It's all we've been doing since we've been around since 1951. It's just repositioned in a different way. Tribe, content, platform, and intentional leadership. Sites don't run themselves. I can't tell you how many times somebody says, "Ken, we need an app. We need to put up a new site." I said, "Well, I just walked through this question. This is what we're training ourselves to do every time. Who are you exactly trying to reach?" Everyone. No. My daughter's a PR communications major, just graduated. She said, "Dad, there's no such thing as everyone." There's no general public. There's groups of people. There's specific groups, and you have to talk to those people, and you have to listen to those people, and you have to respond to those people. And it takes intentionality. So as we continue today, we told you about the first shift that we learned about of 3. The first one was what? Outside-in perspective. Thank you. The second one is empowering. And this is a question that we take very seriously in our organization because we believe in local ownership. And so we want to empower the individual to drive their ministry. And we're not talking about our staff. We're talking about 10 million potential volunteers. We're talking about people at the local level. When we say local ownership, we don't mean most of us in this room or national level teams or regional teams. We mean the people at the front line of ministry. How do we empower those people at the very local level, at the zero moment of truth of a ministry opportunity to do what God's calling them to do without sacrificing the potential of the whole? So we don't want, if you saw all those new campuses that launched, we don't want every campus that launched in 2014 to have to create their own app on iOS and Android. We would like for them to be able to benefit from some of the organization's experience and the fact that we're iterating now. We're on God Tools 3.1.1. It's not God Tools 0.5. We're getting better and better as we learn. So that's a challenge for us. I want to show you a little bit of the power of the whole. This is a day about leading with information. And we were stunned as a team, actually, in digital strategies. I'll be quite vulnerable here. When we saw that sheet that Eric handed out, we were like, where did these numbers come from? We had no idea. And we've been slowly over the last year, we've not been paying a whole lot of attention to the GMA because we're not sure who's reporting into that. But we have been looking at the strategies and what we can learn. So I just want to share a little bit with you here. These are just 4 digital strategy ecosystems that have some sense of win, build, send built into them. And the first one is Jesus.net. It's in 26 languages. The primary leaders of that are all part of the Campus Crusade ministry. But it involves 52 different partnering organizations. And it's been really a privilege for me to work with the guys who lead that out of Western Europe and to really see something blossoming there that is just electric and that God is using so powerfully. I was at the conference in Poland in April, and to see 52 organizations come together with the sense of unity and collaboration, and we are going to bring Jesus to the world on the internet. It's amazing. Last year, that coalition, if you will, saw 17.86 million visits or views on their sites, with 2.61 million people responding to a call to action. And a call to action is something, and it's a CTA in digital terminology. It's when you have a site, you're asking, what's the one main thing we want people here to do? What's the step we want them to take? If you think about the local movement indicators that Eric showed us this morning, he said, this is not about statistics. This is about a map of how we do ministry. We want people to move through this map. And it's the same thing when you're thinking about digital. What's the step we want them to take if we visit? What's the main thing we want them to do? Well, 306,000 of those left contact information that said, I'm here and I want to be contacted. So of the total, that's 1.71%, which is above industry average. That's fascinating and encouraging. We should be praising God for that. I'm not going to go through every detail of these, but you can see just with everystudent.com in 35 languages, 11 million visits last year, 170,000 decisions. But here's the key thing on this one. The average time on site, 9 minutes. That's like 10x of normal. Marilyn Adamson has gotten so good at tweaking her articles because she understands personas, and she's writing to very specific audiences with very specific questions. That is an amazing statistic. And there's a handful of those type of statistics that we look in digital to see, are we really just having leaves, or do we have fruit? That's fruit, because that's engagement. What we want is multiple engagement, because that's like real life. Disciples following day by day. multiple engagements. Falling plates, some of you have seen that. By the end of the year, we had 2.66 million YouTube views. Number of site visits, 32 languages subtitled. And Jesus Film app was referred to earlier. 23.76 million views and 264,000 installs. So potential volunteers using this to share. Now, when you look at that, does it mean that it's not all apples to apples? There's some oranges and lemons in there, but it's all fruit. What it's saying is that people are finding our stuff and they're taking action with it, whatever the appropriate action is. And it shows an engagement of 55 million visits or views last year. This is in our rearview mirror. And 3.28 million calls to action, almost 6%. Now, I want to ask you, when we start talking about 10 million empowered volunteers, and you look at this number, all of a sudden, does it seem a little more believable? It does to me. All of a sudden, I think, wow, if we can continue to improve, and this is just 4 strategies. This is not any of our 190 national websites. It's not crew.org. It's not all the other stuff. It's just 4 strategies. So we're talking about the scope of actually achieving, being able to reach what God has called us to do and believe in God for. That's amazing. The problem, one of the problems, is that currently our sites compete with each other in Google rankings. If you're doing church planning training, and 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 we're all searching, guess what? Somebody's going to be on page 2, 3, and 4 of Google, or 8, or 10, because we're competing against each other, cannibalizing each other, as one person put it. So we have this entrepreneurial spirit in our organization. We want to encourage people to create, but we don't want to encourage people to cannibalize. And recently I was part of a Lion's Den. We were vetting a number of projects, potential projects, and one country actually submitted 3 potential projects that all overlapped significantly. And we wrote back to the people submitting and said, did you know that you guys are all from the same country and you're all basically submitting the same idea and you're all asking for like $500,000 to do the same project? Would you consider combining your requests and doing this together? And you know what the answer was? No. And so sometimes we just kind of scratch our heads and go, wow, what are we creating out there? And we just don't have the money and time to sustain a bunch of D-grade level projects and apps. Let's make a couple of really good ones. If we need a couple of different types, let's build a couple of different types. If we need 3, let's have 3, but let's not have 30. Or let's not have 300. I want to show you an update of God Tools. Some of you know that, like I said, as of a few months ago, we only had 2 languages in it. Now, we did this as a kitchen project in Indigenous and updated it to 15 languages. It's being kind of guerrilla marketed for free on some social networks. But I want to show you the power of something. I'm going to try to go to live and see if you can see this. Can you see that? Okay, so this is the Google Analytics live feed of this app, and it goes to, I loaded it as of yesterday for the date. So this is when we started it, and this shows new users here, active users right here. Active users, somebody that's actually using the app, and so right when we were doing it, we had 11 active users 6 weeks ago. And now we got a bump during Indigenous Addis, got another bump at Indigenous Amsterdam, and now we're seeing 321 active users per day but sharing their faith with this app. And we haven't done a whole lot of marketing, honestly. We haven't spent any money on it yet. But we can start advertising this. We can start interrupting people and saying, hey, have you thought about doing this? And where are these people coming from? Where are they actually using it? You'd be surprised to know that everywhere that you can see blue is a country that has now used this new app in the last 6 weeks. 150 countries almost no marketing. 6 weeks. We can tell you how many sessions have been opened, which countries, how many screen views, how many screens per session, and the average session duration. The average session duration is 3.5 minutes. So it's not somebody just checking out the app. People are actually working through this. And you can see the countries there. And I want to show you country number 15, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, 130 sessions, users. We've got average time per session is almost 3x, 8.5 minutes per session. So we've got 130 users in Saudi Arabia using God tools, doing something with it. I don't know how many staff we have in Saudi Arabia. Can you see 10 million engaged volunteers? Can you see it? Can you see this? It's right in front of us. It's right in your pocket. And you're saying, but I'm not digital strategy, so what do I do? Well, if you're an LDHR, you train our new staff. If your new staff aren't learning this to share their faith, you're obsolete. Folks, we've got to change. We all got to do this together. We've been doing the best we can. We've gotten as far as we can. But we don't want to be like the rocket garden that we saw yesterday. Those are awesome. They're fantastic machines, but they don't fly anymore. People look at them and go, ooh. We want to be moving on into the future. Amen? All right, so one of the most fun things we've done is, a year ago, this did not exist. And the Lord has brought this together, the combination of indigenous ministry, really believing in dash-led and local ownership as our primary driving values, that everything is geared to help 10 million people. We don't know who they are yet, but we're going to find them and help them in the digital realm. And God brought the name and the icon together, and it's just been fun to do a startup. So this is what Indigenous has been about. I think you've seen the report. I'm not going to go through all the details, but 7 months, 5 continents, 662 people from 60 different organizations. This was really an outside-in experience. We tried as much as possible to make it open and collaborative, and I think we're learning some of the same things that Bekele and his team are learning in the GACX. When you talk about the vision and you talk about the missional gap, what remains, and don't talk about organization and how we have to get organized and would you join us, man, it just brings things to a new level. It is the deepest spiritual note. It's what people will come out of the closets to participate in. And there's been an energy and an enthusiasm and excitement that I haven't seen for a long time. And our 2 audiences for this that we have targeted are what we call super kids, which are the kind of 20 to 35-year-olds that are digitally savvy and know how to use all this stuff, but they're never going to work for us. Maybe they're going to go to industry, maybe they're going to have a job, maybe they're going to be a barista at Starbucks, we don't know. But they will come and play. And these are coders, writers, photographers, videographers, people that graphics design, and we've invited people to come from the professional realm to come speak at these things, and we try to do at least 50% that are non-staff, they're on the platform, they're giving 15-minute short talks about learning and what they've learned and keynote addresses. Don from yesterday was one of our keynotes at our first Indigenous. And they talk about their life and their passion for Christ and how that's taking place, and we had a guy from Hollywood. It's amazing. Every single conference I've had a non-staff professional come up to me in a break and pull me aside and say, Ken, some of them with tears in their eyes, say, I've never felt so validated in ministry in my life as being here. Finally, somebody is seeing the gifts and the training that I've had, that my people at my church and other ministries haven't seen, and they're allowing me to use that for Christ. And it's such a privilege. It really is. And I want to invite Farai up. I know several of you, actually, if you've been to an Indigenous conference, would you just stand? Because you've tasted of some of the new wine. Just stand and let's see. That's great. I've invited Farai to come up and share a little bit of his experience recently at Indigenous Addis.
Yeah, thanks, Ken, for the opportunity. It was my very first time to participate in Indigenous conference, and I must confess that I think, like Ken says, it really took me time to believe that we can actually use digital strategies to build movements. But when I went to Addis, it was amazing to see about 50 church leaders who actually came to this conference, to grace this conference, and to hear them testify that if we are going to make a difference in the generations to come, the church needs to embrace, digital strategies. The other thing that was so amazing and thrilling is to see the desire to reach out to these professionals. There's a lot of innovation out there. There's a lot of creativity that is out there. And what this Indigenous conference did was to bring these people together and encourage them to make sure that they come up with their own solutions that they can be able to use, which suits the environment in which they are operating from. So it is such an empowering approach, so that what people are doing in the marketplace, they actually can turn it and use it to reach out others for Christ. So the Indigenous conference that we attended in Addis helped to see two great business people that were there. One of them developed a website which is called Ushahidi in Kenya. And basically they started this, tracking on elections and violence that was taking place. But to see that being converted and to be used for the kingdom was so much touching to me. And I realized that it's very true that if we focus on using digital strategies, it is going to be very easy for us to see communities of multiplying disciples. And by seeing the church owning it and getting excited with it, it is a proof on its own that where we are going in terms of the church, digital strategies is key, and we have to embrace it. Thank you.
That's fine. You just take it down there. Thank you. One of the things we try is what we call kitchen projects at Indigenous, and it's where the local hosts, as Fry mentioned, say, here's either something we've already created, but it needs to be taken to the next level of iteration, or it's an idea we've had, but we haven't had the critical mass of people to actually know how to do that, or this is something that's broken, and we would like some other people to help us fix it. And the energy around those projects has been so fascinating. And, not all of them are going to work out, but that's part of the digital experience is we iterate really rapidly and throw stuff away pretty quick if it doesn't work, or we try it again. And I think to have been at this level of organizational leadership, I know many of us feel like that. Sometimes it takes we'll have that meeting in 6 months, and we'll do a little bit of alignment, and then we'll put it on the calendar, and 18 months from now, we'll talk about it again. You know how that pace of ministry kind of goes? Well, these guys get in a room for 48 hours, and they say, our objective at the end of 48 hours is to have 15 new languages on God tools published in Android and iOS, and it's going to be done. Or marketed, or as one group said, hey, we can't do that, so, or that's not going to fit in Africa because they don't have smartphones. They have the flip phones. So a little subgroup broke off and wrote and coded in that 24-hour period a flip phone version of God Tools with Amharic for Ethiopia. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that just happens. And you think, where did that, it didn't even have time to get on a strategic plan, and it's done. And so it's like, man, I wonder if it was like this for Dr. Bright in 1951, where you just kind of like, hey, I want to start that, try this. And it's so exciting. And the people are out there, and they want to contribute. We just need to create space for them to do that and get ourselves out of the way in many times. So just so you understand, Indigenous is about connecting people, strategies, and projects. So that's what we do when we see God pull that together. First shift was, outside-in perspective shift. Second shift was empowerment. Third is balance. We are at a place where we need to talk about a balance between guidance and governance. Guidance is when we offer a set of best practices, other helpful advisory information to help optimize what we're doing. We do a lot of that at our conferences. Well, let's make sure we get some best practices up there. Let's post that. Let's learn from that, and that's good. We're a learning organization. We value having a learning environment. So it's really important. But a lot of times, we're just learning. Or we're creating the fourth and fifth and sixth iteration of something new that already exists very well, but other people don't know about, or they just want to do their own thing. And so there's another side of this equation called governance. It's a set of standards that the entire organization needs to adhere to for the common good. Remember yesterday when we were looking and when we first walked in out of the rain at the Kennedy Space Center, and they had that one Soyuz craft up there, and it was the front end that connected to the space station? Remember, there's other countries that have developed things that connect to the space station. Do you think they had a governance committee that said these are the exact measurements and dimensions of what you're going to need when you're up 250 miles in the stratosphere, because if you don't agree with these specifications and you try to lock, it won't work. People will die. The oxygen people won't be able to breathe. That's governance. Doesn't mean you can't do what you want on the rest of the ship, but for that piece, it's got to fit. And they're all going to standardize to that piece. So we've got to start determining the right balance to achieve our goals and stay true to our mission. And as we've been thinking about this, we've talked about no governance, where everyone does what is right in his own eyes, the days of the judges. And extreme governance, one sight to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. And I'll let you imagine what side of the spectrum we are currently on. And I have not met a single person in this room, including myself, that would suggest that we should live at extreme governance. That's not in our DNA. It's not how we operate. But there's probably some places on the continuum where we need to move. There's an optimal place to best serve 10 million multiplying disciples. And as we go forward as a digital strategies team, we are going to be engaging various people from all strategies all around the world in different places to say, what are those issues and how will we govern? That's kind of one of the next things on our roadmap. We're not there yet. We've got some ideas. One of the pieces that will guide us as we determine how to govern ourselves is pillars. These were born out of a lot of interviews, a lot of discussion, and in the January time when the group met together, we spent a lot of time, about half a day or maybe a full day, discussing and deciding how would we have some pillars that might help us govern, that would drive organizational alignment, guide our decision making. So if somebody's over here on this continent and they want to build something, how would they know if that's already been built or not? If it has, what are the specs that would connect it to that? Or do we just need two separate things? And what would be the process that would guide that? How would we establish priorities, and how would we define the metrics that mattered? And as we worked through that, we determined that there were 5 pillars and 1 foundation that we were going to use to kind of set digital projects on to guide our thinking. Right now, our governance model is the sand on the beach. There's not really, if we had pillars and tried to set them there, they would topple over because there's just not much there. There's nothing, I can assure you, globally. I've looked for it and it's not there. But we need something a little firmer, maybe like that gravel road that we drove by that the big vehicle launcher could drive along. It was solid and it could sustain the weight. So these are our pillars that will guide experience. Simplification. We just need to make things simple. Love God, love people. That was simplification back in Jesus' day. But how do we convert our message to these audiences and the ones that you minister to and the places and contexts you're in? How do we make it simple? How do we give our users choice? You heard in the video that he saw an ad, he began writing emails, then he connected, then he got face-to-face, then he went to church with the family, finally he came to Christ. It's just like we do. If you're going to make a major investment or a major purchase, how do you do that? Ann and I recently had to buy a new washer and dryer for our clothes last month. And I can tell you how we did that. We started by looking here. What's there? What's on sale? What's available? Is it 4-star ranked or 5-star ranked? Do they have them in our place near us here in Orlando? We found the place we wanted, so we drove to a couple of stores and looked. We could touch it. We could see it. We could look. We could talk to the shop owner at Lowe's and say, tell us about this one and this one. Which one has better service? Which one gets returned more often? Can you make us a better deal than 15% off? And then we go home and we do some more research online to be doubly sure. And then we go back and make our purchase. Anybody else operate like that today? Before you buy a book, before you buy anything? That's what people are doing when they're checking out the faith. Sometimes they want to talk to somebody, sometimes they don't. They want some information. Sometimes they want to show up and just participate in the back of the room. Sometimes they want a live chat. Do we offer them choice? Is it relevant? That's the whole point of this persona exercise. Are we offering things that are relevant to the interests that they have expressed? And are we enabling our staff? Yesterday, Don talked about 40% of his staff would have to be retrained because they didn't currently possess the skills inside the organization. That's something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to model it and train it and live it ourselves and enable our staff and say, when they say, why are you doing this change to me? To say, we're all in this together and we're going together. We're going to enable you to do that. And then finally, guidance. What works best for flip phones? What works best on a Galaxy? What works best on an iPad? How do we offer clear guidance so we're not reinventing the wheel and wasting time and money all the time? And underneath those would set some kind of open, transparent governance group that would have a very simple framework that when people want to start things, they would be able to find, hey, what's already happening and how will we do that? That all sounds pretty good. It sounds great in theory. I've sat with many of you in my recent trips and travels, and I've kind of laid some of these ideas out, and you're like, yes, we need governance. I'm like, can I get that on recording? I want to hear some of our leaders saying that. But it's because you feel it too. You realize that our resources are scarce, and it's not just 20 websites in your area, but it's 200, and you don't know what's happening. And people don't know what's happening, and there's always something new. And what about the old stuff? And is it effective? Do we even know? I want to ask 3 leaders to come up that have been wrestling with this and actually leading change in their areas over the last year or two in this arena. So I'd like to ask Kamal, Miharet, and Paul to come up and share a little bit of your experience with us. Let's start with Kamal. So, Kamal, what's a challenge that you faced in this area, and what have you done to change it?
Our area.
Yeah, your area, but I mean in the digital area.
Okay, just let me tell you this. In our area, in name, we have the passion to reach the 500 million of Arabs who live in North Africa and Middle East. But I was wondering why the results are weak. We don't have good results. First, I found that we have the number of websites we have in our area, it's equal to the number of population in the name area. 500 million. Second, you know, the materials we have, the media, YouTube, and short films and website we have. The second problem is that we don't have enough help for people who are visiting our website or short films or YouTube or Facebook to help them and to give them the path where they go to accept Christ, to grow, and to be disciples. So what we did, I asked 13 of our leaders, digital leaders from different countries in the Middle East. We sat together for about 12 or 13 times. And as Arab, we decided to kill, not the staff, but to kill most of our websites in the area. So we executed most of them. And we came out with, you know, a new strategy with simplicity. And like one of them is one website, evangelistic website for the area of name, one YouTube channel, one Facebook, and one Telmaza, which is it means discipleship website for the whole area. So people in the Middle East, they go only to that one. But it takes a lot of courage from the team to say, yes, we don't want that website anymore. And you know, I put one challenge in front of them. I said, let's, this week, to do something, one thing. Let's put one post on one of our Facebook and see if we can get a result. And we spent $500. In like 5 days, we had 1.1 million of visitors to that post. It equal to that millions of websites. So and second, we need to we put the strategy to start concentrate on group people and age. You know, 50% of our area under the age of 50. 73% under the age of 29. So we need to reach that people. And you know, one website we kept, you know what it calls? Arab Sex. The number of people, the number of Arabs who are, you know, visiting this website, it's equal to many of the websites we have. So we need to work hard and make it very simple. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Mirat, you've been really engaging volunteers. When we talk about Dashled and 10 million, you're kind of leading the charge in that. Tell us about what you're doing.
Thank you, Ken. In our area, for the last few years, we have seen the growth of volunteers, and now we have about 500 plus volunteers who are engaged in different kinds of digital strategies in our area. At the same time, we have only 5 fully assigned staff members. So if you take the ratio, one person is engaging with 100 volunteers, and it's always growing. Some of the trends and the principles I learned in this growth is prayer is the first one, and after that, the second one, what we do almost every time we host program is sharing the vision. We start with the big vision, how these digital strategies can really accelerate the fulfillment of the Great Commission. And after that, after sharing the vision, the first time when we did that, we always look for key leaders, like influencer or the person of peace, you can call them, who are the people who are really getting the vision and who want to run with it. And after we identified those leaders, me and few of the leaders who are working with me, we spend time to listen to them and what they want to do with different kinds of the things. And listening is a big idea. Some of the volunteers I personally experienced or I recruited, they were only from Facebook. I don't know them face-to-face, or I never met them physically, but on our different Facebook pages, when I started seeing and listening what they are commenting and giving feedback, I will just challenge them, why don't you be an admin for this page? So I will be busy in another work. So that was one way of also recruiting people. Then after getting those leaders, then they have to be delegated. That was the fifth one. Delegating them with full, like taking all the risks. Sometimes the students want to just do something by themselves, and you may feel they may not do it well, but they have to be given that chance. And the last one I will say is we will celebrate what God is doing in our volunteer activities. And sometimes we have some like tips like iPads or phone, or sometimes very few one, just honoring God. And you heard about Indigenous Addis, what God did. My leader, Farai, shared that one to you. Now after Indigenous Addis, what is surprising me is 5 more Indigenous Light events are in process. And all of them were initiated by the participants. And out of these 5 Indigenous Light events which they are planning, 4 of them are fully driven by volunteers. There is no staff who is working with them. And they are themselves who are doing that one. And there will be one light event in 2 weeks' time, and it's completely volunteer-driven, and it will be hosted by students in one of the cities in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Amen. Paul, you give leadership to crew.org and the team that runs that whole system. And tell us a little of the story and what kind of the journey you've been on, and what are the challenges and opportunities and.
Yeah, so one of the, when I stepped into the role about the same time that Ken did of helping to lead digital strategies in the U.S., and one of the biggest opportunities I saw right away was that if things were going well, I could take credit, and if they weren't, I could say, you need to talk to Ken. And so that was a huge benefit of having you step into that role very timely. But what we saw with not just crew.org, but with the U.S. was very similar to what Kamal described, is that we were really in a competition to see how many websites we could launch, and it was really hurting our ability to help serve 10 million volunteers who are going to be a part of the Great Commission alongside of us. And so we became very focused on helping to move us toward that opportunity. One of the things we saw really quickly was a couple of things that most people who had launched websites actually had some really good ideas about the reason why they launched those websites and what that website was supposed to be about, especially the ones that were being maintained. And we learned along the way that the question wasn't usually, should you be doing that website or not, or should you be responsible for that thing or not? But it really was to say, what are the things that we should be doing together to help serve 10 million? Because as we've talked about here today, people who aren't a part of us, who aren't insiders with us, they don't care how we're structured. They don't care, what's the part that Paul's responsible for, what the part that Ken's responsible for, what part is Meheret responsible for. What they care about is, can I find what it is that I need to go after what God's called me to? And so for us to really realign our thinking around that and say, how can we ensure that whenever someone is looking for the resource or the tool that they need, they can find it. Ken mentioned some of the work that Filter did and alluded to some of this, but if you were to Google evangelism several months ago, I'm not sure what would happen today. You could obviously try it right now. But on page 1 of the Google search, the World of Warcraft would come up. That famous ministry, World of Warcraft, would be on page 1. And we would show up on page 12, the 12th page of the Google search. And to me, that was unacceptable, because I really believe that we have some of the best tools, resources, and training available in evangelism today. And so our goal at the end of the day, we can never lose sight, is not to be first on the Google search, though that's a good thing. The goal is always to think about how we serve those 10 million that are trying to be a part of the Great Commission, and how can we really serve them and help them with the tools and resources that we have to offer.
Was that easy? Did everybody just go, God, that's so obvious?
Yeah.
Let's do that, Paul. How can we help you?
Yeah, every conversation I had, people were like, this is great. We're going to do exactly what you like. As Ken kind of alluded to there, I think a lot of the leadership journey that we've been on is really approaching everything very humbly, understanding that when someone else has had a website, they've launched it, they've probably learned a ton, and that we can learn from them. And so never walking in to say, the thing that you've been doing here in this way, and you need to change it right now and do it this way, but really to walk in and say, what can we learn together, and how can we actually together go after this, and really inviting leaders along the journey with us digitally, but also helping to keep in front of them that in the digital world, things move faster than ever before. So we can't have that, let's meet 6 months from now and then talk again 18 months from now approach. And so we've been very blessed to see some good progress. Again, the goal isn't page views, but we've seen our page views increase by 40% in less than a year on crew.org. And in the last few months, we've actually eclipsed the million page views per month for the first time in the history of crew.org. And so we're seeing really good traction. And a big part of that for us, with digital, there's a lot of things that contribute to that. But we've just tried to go after those quick wins of increasing our social media traffic, things that we knew we needed to do right up front to help with some of those quick wins. So it's kind of like scoring a goal in the first 29 seconds. That's really important.
Well said. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your leadership. So now it's time for you to talk about your experience a little bit. One of the things that we heard and learned as we've gone to school and learned from other digital strategists in other industries is that there's kind of a dual axis that determines your level of maturity as an organization. One side, on the left axis, you'll see that digital intensity, and that kind of makes sense, right? So this is where, if you don't have anybody that can code a basic WordPress site or build a basic app or hook together a few graphic images and make sense, then you're not going to be very digitally mature. So beginners, don't have much of that, but as you go up, you have fashionistas. So they may have super advanced digital features, social, mobile, apps, but they're in silos. There's no overarching vision. There's underdeveloped coordination, and a digital culture may exist, but it still reflects kind of where the organization was before. That's one level of digital intensity, and we could keep going that way. We actually have a lot of progress in that area. But the other thing that every single speaker in San Francisco mentioned over 2 days, they said, we have not figured this out in our company. And one of the great illustrations was Harvard University was there. They got more money and more brains per square foot than maybe anywhere else in the world. And the guy was there, he was so humble, the chief digital strategist was talking about it. He said, we have 14 colleges at Harvard. We have 14 IT systems at Harvard. And he had graphed out what we call the consumer experience journey of a person who was a student that was applying and getting application material, getting accepted, getting financial aid, beginning their academics at Harvard through their various years, graduating, becoming an alumnus, being asked to contribute as a donor, and then being asked perhaps back for professional placement, and then to be asked back to become an adjunct professor. And so they tracked this potential 10 to 15-year journey that would be the ideal journey that they want their students on. And every single one had to go to a different place. But from the student side, it made no sense at all. Why wouldn't I just go, it's me, I've been here, you know me. I want to log in and come. So he talked about the process, and he said this was his favorite 12 emails he wrote were to 12 other universities asking for help. Hi, we're Harvard and we need help. We noticed that your website is awesome. And I hate to say it this way, but he said, we were one of the top on the list on yourwebsitesucks.com, which is a ranking system. And he said he took that into his board and said, we need to act. And so that kind of created some momentum. But the point was, every single one of these leaders said, you can get to a certain level of maturity with your technology, but it's actually transformational leadership intensity that will drive the change. It's what Don mentioned yesterday. It's what most of us know in our hearts. It's what we do every day, all of us in this room, is praying and giving spiritual and strategic leadership to bring change that's necessary. And so this is where people are going through having an overarching digital vision. Not many advanced features, but some traditional capabilities may be present, some strong governance, and taking active steps to build digital skills and culture. That would be a conservative, kind of in that bottom right-hand corner. But ultimately, we want to end up as digerati. That's maturity in the top right corner, where there's a strong overarching digital vision, good guidance and governance, many digital initiatives generating business value or ministry value in measurable ways, increased productivity, innovation, and a strong digital culture that's not just for the people using digital, but for every one of us in the room. And so I'd like to turn you in groups in your tables, and I'd just like to ask you, in your experience, where, for the ministry you're a part of right now and that you oversee, where would you rank this? How would you describe where you think you are? Let's just talk about it for a couple minutes, and then I'll make a few more comments and close. I want to share a few thoughts about the road ahead. You know, as we talk about digital maturity, one of the things that I like about that term is that it's not about being good or bad. It's not actually binary. It's a process. And each one of us, personally, are going to grow at various stages in our own digital maturity. There's too much out there. There's way too much going on that any of us could know everything. That's the amazing thing I've learned is how diverse this field is. A lot of the stuff that is guiding the most important types of decisions weren't even majors in college 10 years ago. These are new fields. And so there's a lot of learning required. But each of us can take that step in our own personal maturity. And I would, first of all, encourage each one of us in here, you, to find a few articles, a few links, the God Tools app, something that's your go-to digital tool that you can model, that you're comfortable with, that makes sense in the persona context that you minister in, that you can use regularly and even share about as God uses that through your ministry. That's going to be very important as we move forward. And I know a lot of us are very comfortable with that. For some, it's still a little bit challenging. But remember those 4 tasks that I gave to you at the very beginning of our conversation when we started this afternoon? It's my conviction that every single one of us in the room ought to be able to do those 4 tasks without much difficulty at all. Those types of things. Those are the bread and butter of ministry, of just helping people take the next step. As we trust the Lord, we have been putting together a digital maturity roadmap. And in January, this didn't exist. And it's really cool now to look at, there were some really big projects for Q1 and Q2 that a lot of people in this room and many more outside of this room contributed to. that were additional work, and it's new work. And that's one of the things we're finding. It's not only just getting people to give a little extra, but starting to reshape, wow, this is going to be a new job. Like, how do we do organizational capacity in web analytics? Like, whose job is that going to be? It's not just a part-time thing. Or social media response. Or a global leaders communication ecosystem. What you've benefited from in this conference, the Inspire site that we all registered on, that was a completely new project. They told us that it would take us 6 months, and I said, well, here's our budget, and you have 60 days. And they did it in 70 days. And it was amazing what happens when you start putting fresh challenges, because that's the pace that we need to lead at now in some of these areas. And we can do it. It's hard, but we learn. To build 9 research-based personas. When Christine was consulting with us and talked about this, we all kind of stared at each other and said, what? What is a research-based persona? And now we have some expertise in the room, and we've actually been through a process. And I think that's what President Kennedy was getting at when he talked about the reason we go to the moon's not because it's easy, because it's hard. And a lot of the technology and the capacity for this country that we're sitting in right now, the industries that spawned off because of the problems that had to be solved 50 years ago to try to get to the moon. And as we try to solve these things, it's going to open new windows. It's going to provide a lot more surface area for non-staff volunteers with that expertise to lead us in how we approach ministry, because they know more than us. And they know more than us. And all we have to do is say, you know a lot more than us. Would you help us fulfill the Great Commission this way with your expertise? Lead us. And they show up, because that's what God has put in their hearts to do. So this is roadmap. I'm not going to go into detail. I just want you to show that somebody is thinking about this. It's not in ink. It's in digital form. So we can change it anytime we want. It's like a whiteboard. And we are. We're readjusting, prioritizing all the time. But we know that these are the main types of things, the types of capabilities that we're going to have to somehow buy or build so that we can become digitally mature as an organization. And it's a great process. It's the next thing God has for us. It's like the Roman roads 2,000 years ago that paved the way for the gospel. This is the new Roman road. And we're learning how to play on it and build on it. These are some of the main 5 projects that we attacked in March. 4 of them are completed at this stage. And I love when I sat down with one of the guys I was consulting with about this and just asking him questions. And he said, well, Ken, what are you going to complete? This is January. He said, what are you going to complete in Q1? Like by March 31st. And I'm like, oh, well, that's like 7 weeks away. He's like, yeah, that's the speed you have to run here. There's no 5-year strategic plan for digital. It's 3 months, next 6 months. We might see over a 2-year horizon. We got some ideas, but this thing pops, and we've got to pop with it. So I just praise God for the people that have been involved with this, and I praise God for you, and thanks for your engagement today. It's a long afternoon. It's a lot of new information, but you've been stellar, and I just want to give you a hand. And would you do that? Let's just praise God for your engagement and your experience. As we wrap up, Christine asked a question when she was looking through and some of our thoughts for this day and preparing. And she said, the single most important thing you can do to achieve your 10 million mission is to create a digital journey that helps guide those who are looking for a closer relationship with Jesus by providing a clear path on the screens they have access to. Is that clear? Is that simple? Do you want to help guide them, or are you going to leave it up to them to figure it out? That's the challenge before us, friends. We're all in this together. Obviously, our team is running point on this, but this affects all of us because this is missions. And I don't know about you, but when God called me, He called me to go to places where the gospel wasn't. And these 9 people just represent some of the 5 billion where the gospel isn't. In closing, I would like you to take a few moments in your journal to answer 3 questions. What's something that you got today that you didn't get before? What's something that you felt today that you hadn't felt before? And what's something you want that you didn't want before? Give you a couple minutes in silence to reflect, and I just ask you to turn and share with a partner, not the whole table. We won't have time.